Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Strategy Sessions here on the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. And in today's Sunday Strategy session, we are going to be diving deep into the category of faith and specifically the neuroscience of faith. But in this episode, we are going to be looking at the intersection of science and spirituality. This is a new topic if you're new to the show. I am a person who does not come from a religious background and very recently has found a lot of connections coming in place to me for different topics and things I've been studying over the last 15 years and starting on a self-help journey and growing and evolving from the person that I was in 2010 through now in 2025. There's been so many iterations of my growth, and they've been facilitated through different methods and different tools and different relationships and just experiences that I had. And I now find myself in a place where I'm taking a step back and really able to kind of piece a lot of shit together. And I'm noticing in sharing my thoughts with others that are close to me that, there is this reverberation of a certain generation of people in their late 30s and early 40s who find themselves really questioning the things that they believe in, questioning the things they ignored, and kind of wondering what parts of their life and what systems they blindly accepted because they were told it was the way things are or the way that things are supposed to be. Throughout time, they've found themselves to be standing not only outside of the crowd, but very much observing a ton of information coming from all different angles that's leading them to believe that there's a lot more out there than we are led to accept and are forced to accept, just with the way in which we have to operate. And mainly more in the United States, but certainly across the globe, there is a certain penchant for wanting to control us in ways that we really don't know we're being controlled in. Very similarly to the adage of the elephants in Thailand that, they'd been staked down to the ground with a rope and a stake as children when they were weak and couldn't pull the stake out. So much so that when they became adults, just putting rope around their foot would lead them to believe that they were stuck there and that it was against their power to make a change and to break free from that system that was oppressing them and truly robbing them of free will and the ability to live the life that God gave them. And I'm finding a ton of comfort in the feedback that I'm getting from last week's episode. I'm thankful for those of you, shout out to Dana, for just seeing me and validating the current journey that I'm on. I'm by no means someone that considers themselves a Christian, but I am very interested in the topics of faith and belief. And because I didn't learn about any of this at a younger age, I literally am starting from square one. I really don't even know a single thing about the Bible. I didn't realize there was so much history and architecture to back up a lot of what is in that book. And that, at the very least, has led me to be very curious about the things that I just haven't read and I don't know about. So I've found myself on a journey where I am just voraciously grabbing whatever podcasts, books, articles I can get my hands on. And it kind of led me down the path of wanting to change every now and then what we talk about on Sundays here during my solo episodes. So, in today's episode, we're talking about the neuroscience of faith and where science and spirituality kind of connect. And for me, I started on the spiritual side of things first, and namely looking to things like yoga, meditation. That led to visualization work. Now it's breath work. There's just been an evolution of finding different parts of myself that I'm able to unlock that gets me a little bit closer to my soul self, the self that I know myself to be and wish to be at all times. And it's the part of myself that I find being squished when I'm forced into situations and systems that are just not meant for me, let alone any of us. So deprogramming has been really interesting. And, I was one of those people that would literally be like, I find it odd and almost troublesome that there are so many individuals around the world that believe that a white Jesus lives in outer space and he's going to save you and change everything about your life. And I still do find it a tad bit silly because, that's not who's up there. If there's anybody anywhere, it's more likely a spirit and an iteration of energy and plasma and just the essence that makes every single thing you can lay your eyes on in this world and outside of it possible. Makes more sense. But I do find that the moniker of Jesus and the branding that he provided has really led to a good number of individuals that follow his word to live that life. But throughout my journey of getting to know a little bit more about organized religion, there's still a great part of me where my, algorithm of collecting information has not really shown me too strong of a side of large scale organized Christianity that is living a good life, that isn't using propaganda of a book to kind of push narratives and things. And I think we've all gotten to a place in our life where propaganda coming from anyone is just like immediately shut down, where it's like, nope, I got enough coming in. I don't need you telling me anything. I'm good over here, living my life, mind your business, on my mind. But I think there is a really beautiful awakening of sorts to a greater entity of just being that I know I am a part of and have been on a journey of for the last few months, and do really find myself looking into the branding that I am for some reason having a hard time wanting to be a part of, namely a lot of just the hardcore Christian, like Bible thumping verbiage that was a thing of the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s and even, into the 2010s that was very off-putting to someone on the outside of organized religion. And in me kind of sweeping away those cobwebs of not really, like, I'm looking for a fresh start here with my adult mind, my very, sharpened emotional intellect that I've worked on very hard for the last 15 years exclusively. And I'm finding a lot of similarities in the writings and the books about the writings that I'm reading and the podcast episodes I'm watching and like the History Channel, like archaeology shows I'm watching. I think for me, it all boils down to, mind you, let me say this. I've pestered Fernando with this topic for months now, constantly asking him questions. He grew up in a religious household, so he has these teachings and a greater understanding of what's going on than I do. So in the constant search for meaning underneath faith and belief and the structures that were the very beginning, the very essence of what is now turned into organized religion across the globe, that's where I've been looking to start. And in getting to still very in, like, I have only scratched the surface, so I don't really want to get into the specifics about what I'm learning unless it's something that really strikes me, like, and unlocks something for me here. But I am really thankful that I'm allowing myself to take this line of inquiry, because this is not something that I ever would have been comfortable with prior to 2010. I would have, like, it's so funny. The parties have completely flip-flopped, like at least twice since I've been alive and been able to pay attention. But back in the early 2000s, religion was something that was absolutely a conservative scenario. And it was almost thought of as silly within liberal circles to put such belief into something outside of yourself, when the very modern narrative of, like, you can do it, like, we can do it, we can do it, we can be whatever we want, we can do it's that is beautiful. But often the hustle culture of the American people is really lacking the belief system that is needed to fortify the hustle culture. And as a very long-standing entrepreneur and someone that's been just very intimately aware of how businesses operate and seeing which ones thrive and seeing which ones fail, 9 times out of 10, the individual running that company is someone that has deep faith in themselves. They have a deep belief in their part in the universe, and that this is the thing that they were set out to do, and this is their purpose, and it's embedded in passion and like all the things that super got me going on like a personal human to human level. I'm now able to identify the ways in which that the spirit, the source, creator, God, are able to utilize us as tools in this effort to continue spreading the good, to continue multiplying the joy and the opportunity and the grace and just the beauty that we are so very lucky to have within this little perfect sphere that we find ourselves living on in this exact time, where we aren't being chased by dinosaurs or fighting for our very lives to find little morsels of food to just survive another day. We're living in a timeline where we're the most comfortable, well-fed, clothed, kept warm, opportunity right in front of us society that has ever lived. Some would argue that we are the emptiest that has ever lived because we have a crisis in a lack of faith. And I don't say that to mean that I think everyone should run out and join a religion, or if you're in a religion, you're currently not doing it right. But there seems to be an intention factor that some have and some don't in regards to their faith and their belief in themselves and in a higher power and in their purpose, and how these things all meld together to make like the perfect life sandwich. And for me, I found that in the beginning, I was not really willing to give a label of God to anything. So I called it the universe. And I was very adamant on creating an interaction with the universe in 2010. And that's when my spiritual journey started. Meditation was big for me then. I was super stressed. My dad was super sick. It was just a lot to deal with. I'm recording at 2:22. And, I just couldn't turn my brain off. I couldn't turn my emotions off. I now know that my cortisol was raging all the time at that moment in my life. And meditation was something that really did come in the nick of time. And in thinking about that and wanting to prepare this episode and still kind of piggyback a little bit off of the neuroscience of faith from last week's Sunday strategy session, I want to talk about where science and spirituality come together to give you a better picture and understanding of what really is happening when you are engaging in these types of practices and how it works with your brain and the things that you feel and why you're feeling them. I really want to try and keep this as like one episode, but it may stretch into next week because your girl went in. I've got 4 pages of notes here that I'm just going to kind of read through while giving you some interjections of how it pertains to my life. But already I can tell we're probably going to get through 2 of the categories here, and there are 7. I guess tune in next Sunday for part 2 of this episode because it's long. I went in. Before we start that, though, I wanted to share some more books that I am reading this week if you're looking for something to read. The Glucose Revolution by Jessie Inchwasp. I'm sure I botched that. She's French. This book is helping me to figure out my hormone issues that are being ravaged because I don't understand insulin. And, surprise, like every other American, I don't understand dietary needs or how your body breaks down food and in what order you should eat food to have less of an insulin response. Get your mitts on this book if you're into it. She's also had like a jillion podcast interviews if you absorb information better in that regard. So check her out. Then I am reading Genesis. This is by Marilyn Robinson. She is a decorated fiction writer and also has some nonfiction, but I'm really excited to see what her fictional take was on explaining Genesis. I haven't really gotten to this book yet, so I'm excited to give her a read before I dive into the ancient versions of that. So if you are interested in learning more about faith and you like it in the regards of a little fiction presentation, this book could be for you. And then finalmente, we have Foodopoly. This is by Winona Hodder. This book is from 2012, okay? Every single problem presented in this book is not only a real thing when she was gaslit into basically being told she was nuts, but it's such a real thing that now it's borderline epidemic level. And I really do believe her to be the absolute foremother of this information in regards to farming and the way in which America needs to get it together ASAP or we're in big freaking trouble. I am trying so desperately to get her on to the podcast, so stay tuned. But if you're interested in learning more about the food chain in America, this book is it. And she is the foremost expert, and it was written in 2012. And you're going to get goosebumps for how much of what she's saying is now commonplace talk, and there's still nothing being done about it. It's gross. All right, let me take a little sip here because that was 15 minutes of yapping. Okay, so there are 3 main things I'm covering, and then I'm kind of breaking down each point after that. Also, I appreciate you for being cool with me looking chill today because it's Saturday, it's snowy and cold outside. I wanted to put on a cute outfit for you. I really did. But then I realized I didn't want to, and I wasn't going to. Also, some of you mentioned that the artwork above my head is oddly placed. I'm going to move it down. This is my work desk where I sit every day, and like to have it low enough for camera, but like not in my face all day long is the conundrum. So we're going to work on that. But that is the cover art of the podcast that I got printed on Canva. I'm obsessed with it. It's really great. Give Canva canvases a try. It was worth every penny. I love it. Okay, so we're going to be discussing analyzing how different types of meditation and prayer are activating different neural networks within your brain. We're going to be exploring the role of the default mode network in spiritual experiences and self-transcendence, which that's a whole thing to itself. And then we're examining how group worship and group prayer and then collective spiritual experiences like meditation classes, breathwork classes are enhancing your neural synchronization with others. Super juicy things. And these are the parts of spirituality and science and how your brain interprets what is happening for you within these religious scenes, like maybe going to church or being in Bible study or in women's group or going to a religious concert and feeling like the vibes in the room that, can overtake you at concerts in that way. And then maybe you've gone to a meditation class or a Zen yoga class where is it Vin? I think it's Vin, the super slow one, or like a breath work or a meditation class or a visualization class. And then you find yourself crying and you look around the room and you realize other people are crying because they're releasing so much energy. And there's just like so much happening within the room. Your brain is intercepting energy that is literally existing outside of your body caused by others and allowing it to come into the receptors of the brain and input that information into your neural network in a way that is positively affecting your body. And I'm not going to get into the physical side and like the benefits, lowering blood pressure, cortisol, vagus nerves, all those great things. You can find that elsewhere because I know a lot about it, but I don't want to go into it today. I really want to get into and kind of provide as comprehensive of a breakdown as I can for those 3 points. And I want to start with analyzing different types of meditation and prayer and how it is working within your neural networks. So, your neural networks are parts of your brain that are distinct circuits that are interacting with and combining your ability to pay attention, drive a car, have a conversation with your wife while you're driving, think about a task that you have to do at work tomorrow that you didn't get to today, and then also running through your grocery list while also feeling abundantly happy that you've got your kid in the backseat, your wife to your right, you're having a great day, you're going grocery shopping, you're going to make a delicious dinner later. All of that is existing at one time, and it is such a crazy amount of information to come in. But the part of it that I find fascinating is that all of that input is leading to an emotional response. There are triggers within the neural networks that, depending on the stimuli that you bring into it, are going to provide you with an emotional response that over time, your body not only gets used to and allows to happen quicker, but begins to crave. So if you've ever had a meditation practice that you started and you're like, whoa, I'm obsessed with this, I love it. And then the next day you want to do it. And then the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. If you find yourself being obsessed with something like that, your brain is giving out those really good receptors of dopamine and that pang for wanting more. And it's tying it to the memory of your body doing the thing you did the day before that gave you that reaction. That's going to bring it to top of mind for you to be like, oh, I should meditate today. I really enjoyed that yesterday. Let me do it now while I've got 15 minutes. So different types of meditation and prayer, and they're pretty interchangeable and they're basically the same thing. You're just kind of using different words for each, calling it something different. It's the same. To your brain, it's providing you with a neural response that registers as very similar. So I'm lumping them into the category. So the different meditation styles that are engaging distinct neural circuits are focusing their attention in meditation primarily on a neural focal point. And to get to that neural focal point, to keep them from losing that train of thought of trying to empty the mind, maybe they're saying a mantra, maybe it's Om, and they're trying to keep that in the brain, and a thought comes in, no, go away, keep it here. That activity that's happening, if you've ever meditated, is your frontal attention networks, bringing you greater awareness to the monitoring that your brain is having while you're meditating to try and keep these thoughts out and at bay. It's super crazy. There's just so many windows open, like on a computer screen, blah, 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 blah. And your brain is continually not only managing these screens, but moving them around to where they need to be and either promoting them or demoting them to get to the task that you have set forth at hand. Now, contemplative prayer, which would be you just working through and talking to God about the things that are on your heart and that you know are not something you like about your life or what you've got going on, that's going to show a different set of very unique patterns of activation that's combining both emotional and the attention network centers, which suggests that a distinct neural state from other forms of meditation is happening. But because there is such almost like a trail of steps to solve a problem while also wanting to emotionally connect to a higher source to gain the emotional support that you need to be able to facilitate this thing that you're trying to track out and figure out and get to the bottom of, is lighting up two different centers within the brain in a way that is not only rewarding these neural centers for working together, but it's now sharpening and making these connections stronger. And these synapses getting stronger over time means that at a moment's notice, rather than freaking out and losing your shit, you're maybe a little easier able to tap into this type of contemplative prayer where you're just saying, just asking a higher power for help and simultaneously starting to feel a little bit better and then feeling confident enough to start making a plan and moving forward with action to get out of that place. There is a lot to be said about also the duration and the intensity of your practice and how long you're doing it. And it's going to depend on the different types of practices you're doing, whether that's breath work, meditating, prayer groups. Maybe you're in a body flow of movement like yoga or tai chi or jujitsu. And it's going to give you, how do I say this? In the beginning, your brain activity is going to be firing and rewiring like crazy, but it's still going to be hard to make these things be how you normally react. So there is a tiny bit of discipline required. That dopamine addiction to this neural network that you've created and you're so nicely repaving every time that you redo the thing over and over and over. But not only have to use a little bit more effort, which makes sense because we're rewiring the brain, but they also have a little bit of a different type of processing than an experienced practitioner or someone that's been meditating for a while, because there's less inertia needed because those neural pathways are so strong that it's like slipping down a slide at the water park. You're just moving and grooving, going to the next place that requires new rewiring and firing, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says. So each type of practice appears to strengthen specific neural pathways, which suggests that there are potential benefits in combining different approaches of meditation, prayer, breath work throughout your week, creating this spiritual routine that's going to be giving you comprehensive brain development. By making sure that you're firing all these different neural networks in your brain because of the different type of prayer or meditative state you're putting yourself into, you are training your brain to get smoother and stronger with every repetition that you give yourself. This is such a fun thing to talk about, and I want to keep it super digestible for now. But if this is something you're into, please leave in the comments what you'd like me to go further into, because I love this topic. I could talk about it a lot, but I'm really enjoying kind of lumping the parts of faith and belief that are utilized in religion to kind of complement the spiritual practices and the brain, mind, body practices that I have been implementing, and am just really loving how they're all locking in like a puzzle piece. Goodness, I think we might have to end there because we're at half an hour. An hour last week. How do you feel about it? Do you want it to be a half hour? Do you like an hour? Is it easier for you to hear in half an hour or an hour? Let me know. I loved this conversation. This is going to definitely be a longer episode. And next week, I will just dive headfirst into just getting right to it. But next week, we'll pick up with the default mode network and what that looks like and how that behaves during spiritual and prayer experiences. There is always this really interesting moment where you begin to feel your heart fill your chest, and then your brain somehow begins to feel weightless. It's like the weirdest feeling. And then you feel everything around you get warmer, like you're being enveloped in the biggest gravity hug of your life. And in those moments of recognizing that I'm just a part of everything, there's a very specific part of your brain that is making you feel that way. And it is, neural synchronization working properly with your default mode network, and then all of your comprehensive brain development within these different neural networks because of these different prayer centers, all activating to give you a truly monumental experience and connection with the source, the creator, God, the thing in and around you, and to know what's happening in your brain and your body to make this physical connection of energy from outside of you enter into you and fill you up in a way that is just like wild. I can't help but correlate, the adage of Christianity where they tell you to invite God into your soul, into your body. And in the instance of feeling that great connection with nature and the universe and just being overwhelmed with the feelings and thoughts of love, I can see maybe where that sentiment and that phrase came from. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's totally scary for me to be talking like this outside of my home and blasting this out to the world. But if this is something you enjoyed, if you have any comments, questions, feel free to DM me. There's going to be all the links in the show notes. Please leave your comments and questions. If you haven't already, please rate and share this podcast. I am doing this literally day in and day out. I love it so much. It's not sustaining me financially in any regards at the moment, and I'm really happy with where it's at, but I would deeply appreciate you sharing and just spreading the word about any episodes or conversations that we have here that touch you and that will touch others. My Richies, as always, it has been such a pleasure. I will see you on Tuesday, and make life rich.